Hello, and welcome to the How We Do Digital Ministry podcast. I'm your host, Charlotte Elia. Today's episode is sponsored by Faith Growth. Church websites are notorious for frustrating church staff, being difficult to navigate, and looking dated. Faith Growth builds simple and beautiful websites that are easy to update so churches can reach their community. They've helped hundreds of churches revitalize their web presence and can do the same for you. Head over to faithgrowth.com to book a free consultation today. But right now, on this podcast, we talk to leaders who are out in the world engaging folks through digital ministry. Today, I'm delighted to have Minister Karen Downing with us. She's the Executive Ministerial Assistant at Jerusalem Baptist Church in Temperanceville, Virginia. And she does it all. She does it all. Minister Downing, please introduce yourself and tell us how you do digital ministry.
Well, hi, Charlotte, and thank you so very much for having me on. I am, as you said, an Executive Ministerial Assistant at Jerusalem Baptist Church in Temperanceville, Virginia, which is on the beautiful Eastern Shore. And I'm under the leadership of Reverend Richard Holland, and there at Jerusalem, I'm part of the media ministry. And being a part of the media ministry, I work with a team. There's a team of us who are responsible for audio, visual, as well as social media too. And that's where my primary focus is on the social media platforms, being able to work with whether it's Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, and being able to just share the gospel through the digital ministry space.
Awesome. How many people are on that team?
Believe it or not, it's probably it's four of us now.
Okay.
And one is responsible for the audio visual as far as our recordings, the microphones, the soundboards and everything. There's a couple of people that back him up on Sunday mornings. And then there are some folks that are engaged with graphic media who are responsible for the beautiful flyers or those things that we post on our social media. And then, there's the ones who are basically posting to our Facebook or to our Instagram pages and keep the, community engaged and informed about what's going on with our ministry too. So it's a small group.
With a lot to do,
Small but powerful. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. We always stay busy. And also, I failed to mention that we're also responsible for the Zoom account too, because we found early on during the pandemic that we needed another video conferencing tool to be able to share with our congregation and others around the world too.
Tell me more about that role, about your hosting activities, what that looks like practically. I know it's probably the least glamorous thing, but really essential.
It is very essential. And what we found out early on, being on the Eastern Shore and not having universal broadband coverage, we found it very challenging because the connections may be spotty. The bandwidth is very limited. So we are one of the churches that we're not able to actually go live with our broadcast. So what we're doing is recording and then being able to share a pre-recorded message with the congregation that following Sunday. And so, we've been very fortunate to be able, again, to have very talented audio-visual people to be able to do the recordings, the editing, and being able to actually share on our various platforms too.
Awesome. Looking forward, or right now being in this hybrid situation, you are meeting in person for worship and some other activities and have this online. Are you going to keep all the online stuff? Are you able to balance, this life? What are you thinking?
Well, right now, it's funny that you asked that question because even I was talking to the pastor a couple of days ago. And so he was asking, okay, are we ready to stop the digital, side? And I said, well, there are people that are following us, hearing the message, hearing the Bible study, who may not otherwise be able to, right? So as long as the word is going out and we have, the resources of the people to be able to serve, my suggestion to him was that we continue. But of course, he is a pastor, and we're going to see where probably the next 6 to 8 weeks we go with that, because the hybrid can be a little challenging in itself, because you're serving both the in-person congregation who are in the sanctuary, and also trying to reach those that may not yet feel ready to come back into the sanctuary, or those who are not members of our congregation who just enjoy the preaching and teaching from our ministry. So that's still a question mark about how long we'll remain hybrid. But again, we found it to be very much needed, and we have the people to run the platforms and things to continue.
Awesome. Poking around your website, I found this series of, excuse me, I'm going to get the title wrong, but 911 video series.
Yes.
Tell me, I think they're wonderful. Can you tell us about that and where that idea came from and was executed?
Again, our pastor had the idea early on that we needed to be able to reach the masses with different things, not just to preach message, but also just some short messages, some things to encourage and also to help us, whether it be from a particular book. In that case, a 911 came from a particular book that we wanted to share some of the ways, some of the strategies. If people find themselves in those situations, that here's some help. Here's where they can go for the scriptures, or here how you can, better be able to reduce that stress in your lives too. And that's why it was called 911, because when there are urgent needs among the people, they really want to know where to go. So he wanted us to record those and post them on the website so that everyone would have access in case they find themselves in that particular situation.
Cool. Can you tell us more about the other online educational offerings you have right now?
Yes. So again, because of the pandemic, and when we initiated that Zoom account, we being the media ministry, were looking at different ways that we would be able to use that tool to impact ministry and to serve the people. So one of those ways is to have our Wednesday night Bible study, because we were, typically meeting in person on Wednesdays at 6:30, and it was okay, since we're not coming to the sanctuary fully, let's use Zoom. And funny that it still continues that we have a following for our Bible study on Zoom. So that's one of the things that we're going to keep that as a small group ministry, if you will, and still go back into the sanctuary for Bible study. We also have, and we just kicked this off in April, a virtual learning academy, right? So this virtual learning academy allows people to join us for classes, and it's a 4 or 5 week session of classes, and they're able just to get on the Zoom with us. They receive the materials in advance. They get certificates at the end, and it's a good way of not only teaching, but the fellowship as well. They get homework too. And so we're really enjoying sharing that. And actually the second class will be starting June 7th on Call to Serve. So the first one was about edifying the body and using our spiritual gifts. And we went through a spiritual gift inventory, and for the students to become more in tune with what their actual spiritual gifts are and how they can serve in the local church.
That's so great. Also being on the Eastern Shore and having these internet access issues, you've also, and I'm assuming this is pre-pandemic, but has continued using things like a teleconference calls for prayers or prayer lines. Can you tell us about that and sort of what that looks like? If I were to join it, what would I expect?
Okay, so the teleconference line, and I laugh about the conference line because it too has its quirks. Because there are sometimes, even when you dial in, you'll get, there'll be the signal that you're not able to get in, or if you put the access code in, for some reason it will not let you in. So you have to try multiple times. But on a good day, the conference line, we have prayer. every morning at 7 a.m. we're having prayer, and then Monday and Friday evenings at 6:30 we have prayer. And persons are able to just join our teleconference line. It may be for 10 to 15 minutes, depending upon who's leading the prayer, and they're able to come on, and they will. There may be scripture, and then someone will offer and share prayer, and then we'll have blessings over them as they get off the line too. This teleconference line, definitely the use of it expanded during the pandemic, because this was also a way for the pastor, if he wanted to talk to the leaders, if there was something we needed to share quickly. So they would call in on the teleconference line. He has a separate line. We have a prayer line, and then he has a separate teleconference line that we would use for those reasons. If there was information that he wanted to share quickly, or if there was time for even other ministries wanting to have meetings, they were able to use the teleconference line, because everyone is not comfortable still with using Zoom. I do say, and I'm so excited because some of our seniors actually wanted to learn how to use Zoom. And we took our media ministry members, we took time to set up separate links with them, get them comfortable with how to use the cameras, their microphones and everything, and just how to connect using Zoom. And I can tell you that they are still coming on, whether it's for Bible study. We also use Zoom as a fellowship time for different age groups that come on, and we'll put them in the breakout room so they can have their own little time together too, and fellowship. It's great.
It is great. And overcoming all of these challenges of connectivity in your area. If only there was someone also doing advocacy for broadband up there. Do you know anyone like that?
Oh, let me guess. I don't know, but I'll tell you what. My name has been associated with broadband. Let me tell you. And here's the thing. For me personally, is that being a native of the Eastern Shore, I really do have great passion for the residents, right? And I want to see all residents have a quality of life that they can enjoy, and not that the Eastern Shore itself, be a barrier for them. And so, yes, I've been engaged about broadband and universal coverage for the shore, being sure that anyone who needs access would be able to have access, and not only access, but affordable access, too, because the Eastern Shore, our demographics are so that we do have a high rate of poverty here on the shore. So we do want to ensure that, families are able to not only have the broadband access, but it be affordable to them and not be a burden because of the cost of it. What we have found, in the last probably 18 months or so, and he's working with broadband, is that installation costs can really be tremendous because of knowing in a rural area, if you're living on what we call a neck, or you're living on a road where there are not many houses, the installation costs can really be tremendous. So again, I'm out there, kind of beating the bushes about, how can we get access for everyone on the Eastern Shore, because we definitely found out that broadband services are a necessity and not an amenity here on the shore. So many around the country, have it and don't even think about the fact of, broadband access and getting on, or having, great cell service either, but here on the Eastern Shore, we kind of have to get out and advocate and go to our local leaders, our state leaders, and even working with the federal leaders too. And there is funding. The good news is that there is funding and coming to Virginia and coming to the Eastern Shore for expansion of broadband services.
It's such vital work that you and others admittedly are doing, but that access to broadband really it's a justice issue ultimately. And it is so hard to explain to people in other areas, just how how bad it is.
It is, because even we did a group I work with, we did a virtual conversation, just about broadband. And, for myself personally, I did not take into account about telemed visits. So during the height of the pandemic, if you wanted to get an appointment with your physicians, it was by telemed primarily. And so if you didn't have broadband access, or if it was really sketchy, then you really were not able to complete your appointments. And so it is very, very much serious that, for the education, we found out, of course, with education system. And again, those areas that are sparsely populated and do not have the access, somebody was having to take the kids to where a hotspot was. And in different locations. It might have been on a school bus. The hotspot might have been on a school bus or something in a particular area. So that still meant that child had to get to that place in order to do their work. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's unimaginable for some people, all of the difficulties already of the distance learning. And then to imagine that your child would be doing that, in some cases, literally from a car in the McDonald's parking lot, because that's the local access point.
Mm-hmm.
Church websites are often outdated, difficult to use, and not very welcoming, and it can be hard for churches to keep up with the latest technology and trends. Website design is constantly changing, and most churches lag far behind the rest of the web. Faith Growth provides church websites that are easy to update, no maintenance, with a modern design that's welcoming to visitors. Our process helps create a website that's unique to you so you can reach the community near you. Schedule your free consultation at faithgrowth.com and see how we can help you reach your community.
So part of your ministry and calling is advocacy with these community groups and doing some work facilitating their digital communications too. Tell me more about your involvement there.
Well, what I can tell you, our pastor, Reverend Holland, he came to Jerusalem in March of 2018. And my introduction to him was, I said, "Hi, glad to have you here. My name is Karen, and I'm your community minister." And he didn't quite understand what that meant. But, as he's kind of seen over these years now, is that I'm very much, tied and connected to the community and some of the different organizations I work with, including Virginia Organizing. I'm a member of the state governing board, as well as a chapter leader for Virginia Organizing. And we're very much in tune to, the injustices of the residents and wanting to raise up those local voices to help and, championing their own causes, if you will. And so working about also about the health here on the Eastern Shore. Recent reports, showed us, that the health ranking was very poor for both Accomack and Northampton County. So the work with Eastern Shore Healthy Communities is very important to me personally, because of, looking at the life expectancy, here on the shore of residents, is that we definitely want to improve that quality of health for the residents too. So yeah, you'll find me kind of connected to different organizations, and even with some of those organizations, I help out sometimes with the digital components of them, whether it's helping them to post on their social media pages, or whether it's just sharing from my personal page as well, some of the information that they have too.
Wonderful, wonderful. How do you think that let's dream for a moment. And cast a vision. If the Eastern Shore gets broadband, affordable, accessible broadband, how would it transform that community?
I believe that if we were to have accessible, affordable, and reliable, because again, because Even though we may have it, we may have the lines run too. If for any reason the services get knocked out, then of course everything goes down again. I believe it's going to be a game changer. And also looking at the FCC is determined broadband by the speeds. So we also not only need to have broadband services, but to have them at a speed, upload, download speed that is comparable to the true definition of broadband. And if we have that, I think it definitely will be a game changer, both for the households and for businesses here. We have a lot of businesses, and a lot of small businesses actually launched during the pandemic too, because they saw where there were needs in the community that were not being met. So I believe, having that universal coverage and having broadband speeds to cover the shore is going to change. One, it's going to change how we do business, because people will be able to go online a lot easier to conduct business. I think it would also improve, again, healthcare, because people will have access, to the specialists that they may need, be able to find out information about their particular diagnosis, be able to also reach out and to secure that second opinion if needed. I think for the kids, whether they be in the elementary or high school, or even our local community college kids, I think for them, it will be a lot easier for them to complete their studies. Right. Because there were a lot of students, who fell behind during the height of the pandemic, because again, they did not have access to, or they did not have anyone to take them to those points where the hotspots were located. So I think we would be able to, become more advanced for our education. And then it would also, as we're looking for housing on the shore, I'm engaged with Eastern Shore Regional Housing Coalition. So we have found from a recent study that the shore is like 1,000 houses short, already with stock. So for the universal coverage, that may be also a selling point or a drawing point for developers coming to the shore, because for them to have the housing projects, but not have all the amenities, here that word is again, that the buyers may be looking for, may affect, their business too. So I believe that it will be a definite game changer for the shore to have that universal coverage, and with the actual broadband upload and download speeds. It would definitely make a difference here too. And I'll tell you, when the internet was first launched as the super highway, of information, and I believe in that same context for the shore, universal coverage with the appropriate upload download speeds will definitely, we would be, can I say the Indy 500, speeds? Yeah. That would bring us into that. Definitely.
Sure. It's almost, it's almost as silly a question as like, how would electricity transform your community? It's just a standard utility and on something we have to have access to for equity, yes. and justice now too. I want to bring it back to the church for a moment. Yes. On your website, there's a form for people ready to make a commitment. Yes. To Jesus. And I wanted to ask you sort of or do you know what the follow-up process is for that? Let's say, I'm a person who filled that form out. Who's going to contact me? What's going to happen?
Okay. So there are two, that's a great question. So there are a couple of different ways of connecting with us from our website. One, there is an email that you can send in your prayer request. And that prayer request will go to the pastor. And for the form that you're speaking of, that there's someone who may have heard us on one of our platforms, who may have participated in our Bible study, and they do want to make that decision for Christ. There's a form there that they're able to let us know whether they are a new convert, they have never been baptized, or they want to be rededicated, and they want to have a conversation. So that email will also go to the pastor, and then he will let one of the deacons know about, the person or he may inform the minister or a minister to reach out to the person. And so we're going to start by having a conversation. We would have prayer with them, find out truly, what are they seeking? And so we can, best know how to guide them in the process. Yes. And to disciple them, because again, if they're have been connected to us virtually, we want to at some point be able to actually have that in-person, face-to-face meeting where we can, learn more about them and they of us as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Where have you seen God online?
Where have I seen God?
Online. And yeah, in your digital work.
So in the digital work, in the digital space, many early on were very cynical. I'm going to say cynical. They were very cynical about going to, virtual services. Now, some of the larger mega churches had an online presence, for many years. Now, for the smaller churches, it was like, okay, having to go from 0 to 80, right? Almost felt like overnight. And so we wanted to, and standing up our media ministries and going forth with the recordings and everything, we wanted to be sure that the word of God was going out, right? Because it was not going to be just a performance or a show, if you will. Mm-hmm. We wanted to be sure that, God was at the center of the messages, that the preaching and the teaching. We were lifting up the scriptures that people would come to know and have a relationship. So, that is, critical for all of us, that we want to be sure whatever we share with the public, coming from Jerusalem Baptist Church, the pastor, he's given us a tenets, if you will. There are 3 tenets in this season for us. And that is, to serve, for evangelism, and to study. And whether we're in person or we're in the digital space, we want to be sure that that is being remembered and being shared with the public too. So yes, God is in the midst of it, because, God has equipped us. He's kept us safe, and we're able to share because of the resources that he provides to us. So God is all over, God is all over this virtual and digital ministry. And for the 4 of us, we lost one of our media ministry members suddenly, and actually during the pandemic as well. So for the 4 of us now, it's even more important, that we are faithful to the call and that we get the word out. And even some Sundays, even though I may be in the sanctuary, I'm actually in a back somewhere with my earphones on, watching the broadcast to be sure that we're engaging with the people, even who are listening on that particular Sunday, and that we are inviting them to come even in our congregation to our virtual, not to our in-person space too. Mm-hmm. So it's not just record and done. Right. It's that engagement piece that is so important too. And that's where, Jesus says to come. And we, want to just remind people that they are welcome, that they can come, because our church motto is that we are the church where everybody is somebody and everybody is family, right? So if you're family, you're welcome anytime.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. So we're out of time. That flew right by, didn't it?
Yes, it did.
Thank you, Minister Karen. Thank you for chatting with me today. Where do you want to be found online? Remind us of that church website address.
Yes, so our church website can be found at www.jerusalembc.org. That is jerusalembc.org. We can also be found, we have an Instagram account if you would like to follow us. We're also on Facebook. We do have a YouTube channel as well, and we are on Twitter. So again, there's so many ways to connect. And again, I am Minister Karen Downing, and my email address, should you want to reach out to me, is it's a long one. It's EXEC for executive, MIN assistant at jerusalembc.org.
Okay.
And so we do encourage you all to reach out to us at any time, and just to share space and to be able to follow what we're doing. And you're welcome anytime to join with us.
Oh, thank you. Thanks again. Thank you, everybody, for listening. We'll get those links in the show notes and the email address as well. We want to invite everyone listening to join us in our private Facebook group, How We Do Digital Ministry. That link is in the show notes as well. It's a great place to join with colleagues to discuss all things digital ministry, on the other 6 days of the week when you aren't listening to this podcast. But until next week, peace and blessings to you all.